Met range 2. Startup. It's so horrible looking at this. I can't even look at this. Okay. Hello. Hi, my name is Jane, and today I'll be talking about a project I did on Tekken, specifically Tekken 7. Sometime in March of 2020, I was watching the demo gameplay of Final Fantasy 7.
Oh, this is a iconic, boss battle.
The first legit
here.
boss fight in the game. The scorpion.
I was looking at the fight scenes. I was pretty much mesmerized. I was really interested in thinking, can I capture that somehow and, create a project around that and do something interesting with that. In June, I did a project on board games, and I created something that helped people understand how to play this game, how to think about it. And I shared it with the Reddit community online, and I got interesting feedback. And one of the responses I got was from someone talking about fighting games. And for me, that was a sign where I thought, oh, okay, maybe it's time to do this project fighting game. I also had the chance to watch a video about female pro gamers in Tekken, and I watched this a couple months ago, and it was very fascinating to watch this video and understand the perspective of female pro gamers in a male-dominated field. And this is when I started getting into the world of Tekken. I started understanding it, started being aware of it, and it really captured my attention. So I thought maybe I wanted to try something with Tekken as a project. So I decided to commit to Tekken as a project, and I needed some direction. So I decided to join the Tekken subreddit and ask the community there. So I asked the community some questions, and I got a lot of suggestions, and it was really helpful. One person suggested I looked at movement specifically, which is a very fundamental aspect of fighting games in general. Someone else recommended me look at a character called Josie Rizal. So she was introduced Tekken 7, and she is a new character, and generally she's quite friendly for people to play as beginners. She's not very hard to pick up, and she's very fun to play as well. And so with these two suggestions, I decided to say, okay, I'll try to learn Josie Rizal in Tekken, and also try to understand movement spacing. So movement is pretty important in terms of fighting games. So here we are at range 0, so right next to each other. Range 1, range 2. So when you're really close, there's some moves you can only do in close. See, this far, that move won't hit. This is just one jab. There's certain moves that are good for far range, like this one. So generally, movement and spacing is really important, and you have to understand how far you are before you can land a hit. Right? That didn't hit, this hit. That's why effective spacing, effective range is really important. And so I started doing a lot of research. I saved so many links and resources, and I read so much. I watched a lot of videos learning the game because I don't have any fundamentals of this game, right? I'm pretty much starting from scratch. I watched a lot of matches as part of my research. A lot of times the narrators who do the voiceovers in these tournaments provide a lot of education for me to understand the game. So this specific round is of Lil Majin, who's on the screen right now. He represents USA versus JDCR from South Korea on the screen right now. This is for EVO 2018, and Lil Majin, joined this tournament without expecting much, but he ended up placing 3rd overall, and that's impressive. And he beat JDCR, who's a 2017 EVO champion. So watch this game and get excited.
Yes. Corner to corner. This is good for Majin. And again, this is the decisive match here. It's 1-1.
Careful, he's moving in.
Ooh. Oh, man.
Okay.
I can't believe I would see the day. We might possibly see it. Oh,
yes!
my gosh.
There it goes.
Look at the scaling, the damage.
Here comes the corkscrew, the wall.
Oh, he got him. Let's go, Majin.
Oh my God, it was a low at that range. Jesus.
For additional context, this match was played in front of a live audience.
Oh, backing up underneath with
Ollie
the Ollie kick.
So Tekken has a lot of notation, and there's a whole glossary to look up to understand this notation, right? So if you look at D/F plus 2, that means down, forward 2. So I thought the best way to explain Tekken notation was to demonstrate it. So in Tekken, there are generally notation. There's a number per limb. So this is a 1 for left arm, 2 for right arm, 3 for left kick, 4 for right kick. So when you see 1, 2, 3, 4, that's what that means. Other part of Tekken notation in terms of command input would be the movement. So if you go up, back, forward, down, right? And then it could be down forward is diagonal forward, diagonal back is down back, DB. I'm not really good at doing diagonals. That's up back, and this is up forward. And so when we look at a move that says D/F+2, it means down forward plus 2. So that's the second right hand punch. So down forward 2 is uppercut for her. So it took a long time to learn what this means, and then when I started looking into frame data, so frame data was something I didn't know existed, and so I was recommended to look into a video by Karud Gaming on why button mashing doesn't work.
A frame is 1/16th of a second, which is the unit of time used to measure speed in fighting games. But thanks to cool people, there are frame data guides that show you the speed of each attack. Since the one jab is the fastest move Noctis has, you decide to jab up close, but your opponent blocks it. This is where the attacker is stuck in an attacking animation and the blocker is stuck in a blocking state known as block stun. The question is, who will be the first to recover and do a follow-up attack?
In that video, the narrative referenced RB Norway, which is a very popular website a lot of people reference for frame data, and you can look up different types of information regarding certain moves. This is for Josie, Tekken 7, Season 3, and she has over 100 moves in the actual game. No one uses all of them. There's usually a certain set that people it's like a go-to, right? But if you try to read this, first of all, I had to understand what the columns meant. So hit level, I had to do some research. Okay, I understood what I meant. Do some research on startup frame. What did do these three mean? They're all over the place, so I had to do a lot of research. Okay, once I understood that, I had to then figure out what it meant. You know, what did this G mean? There's no reference or legend here. What did JG mean? I don't remember. I think this meant juggle. I might be wrong. What did this mean? Let's go down. There's going to be a lot of new ones you won't be confused about. Okay, so and then let's see, startup frame. Okay, startup frame was confusing. So I was like, okay, 12 frames, straightforward. I got this. 13 to 14. What did that mean? And then how do you even search that, right? I don't even know what this means. I don't even know what to search in Google. But I eventually figured out. I think it depends on at what point your move hits, and certain moves had active frames. Anyways, don't want to get into it. JS, what does that mean? You know, why are there numbers after this? What does this mean? Oh my gosh, this is crazy. There's so many nuances to this game. I've done a lot of research at this point, and I decided that I needed to start sketching ideas, and ideas don't flow until I start putting it on paper. And so I started with a sample list of moves for Josie, and there's a you can search it up on Google, top 15 moves for every character, and I found a list for Josie, and I just picked a couple and started trying to visualize it. And here I very simple sketches. So you'll note, if you know anything about fighting games, this is pretty much part of button input. You'll see the button input you'll see on the game itself in the move list. It'll tell you which buttons to press, and I was pretty much like trying to draw inspiration from that. And so here I had a list of attributes I wanted to include. Like, these were what I thought was important to include for this visualization. So I'll just list them out. First was command number and move name. Second was startup frame. Third was hit level. Fourth was damage. Fifth was active, block, or counter hit frames. So these were, I think, the core things. And then, of course, effective range was important as well. And I started thinking about how to represent frames, because if you look at a lot of the videos already done, they just show it as a box. And so I started doing that too, where I had a series of rectangles and I had a lot of boxes. Here I was exploring a different variations of looking at damage. So I thought, if you look at damage in comic books, it's usually like this, it looks like a zigzag circular thing. Can't explain. It's like a star, but not really. It's like those seal things you have. I did so many sketches and iterations. There's like so much going on here. I was trying to figure out how to show damage In hit level, I was really obsessed with triangles because the 3 core things I mentioned, active, block, or counter hit, those 3 things are very much tied together. And I was like, can I connect them somehow? Should I use triangle? Should I, do something with this try thing? And then I just kept going. I even started trying these weird things. I have no idea what I was doing. But I was like trying to really, push this idea a little. It didn't really go anywhere, but that was fine. So I'm a little embarrassed to show this because it looks so bad. All my first versions look quite terrible. Here we have version 1. Before version 1, I started off based on my sketches, right? So I started off with this left to right sort of diagram. I thought, okay, here's the sections that show range. So how far do you have to be for this move to hit? In Tekken, there's defined ranges. We go left to right. So we have range here. So number of X's meant range. So if it's X 1X, it meant range 1. If it's X 2X's, it meant range 2. Startup, it's so horrible looking at this. I can't even look at this. So this bar shows the startup animation. So number of frames in the startup animation before your move lands. So startup animation, remember, is the animation that happens before the move hits an opponent. Okay, looks so bad. And then here we have the damage. So this is the shape of polygon, right? And the number of corners it has, it would be the same as the damage. So if here's would be 15 corners. You're not supposed to count them, but it's just supposed to feel like there's a lot of things happening. And then every hit, every move, they would have a certain hit. So hit level. So if you're high hit, it would hit the head area. If it's a mid hit, it would hit the torso. If it's a low hit, it would hit the leg. So you have certain moves that are high, mid. That's low. So each move has a damage and a hit level associated with it. And then I don't remember what this was. I think this is telling you if it entered into a specific stance. So certain moves will enter into a specific stance. Follow-up frames, right? So what would happen? So I think this was hit, block, and counter hit. So on a hit is when you hit an opponent and they don't block or do anything, you just hit them as they are unguarded, without block. This is block. So when you hit them while they're blocking, and then this is when the counter hit. So if they're in the middle of an animation, but you hit them before they can finish that animation, it's called a counter hit. So you hit them in the middle of an animation. And so generally there's 3 outcomes for a move when it hits an opponent, when it lands on an opponent. Sometimes you can have frame advantage. So when you have frame advantage, it means you're sort of a little ahead on your next move. In terms of, it helps you link certain moves together more effectively and efficiently too.
Close, but your opponent blocks it. This is where the attacker is stuck in an attacking animation and the blocker is stuck in a blocking state known as block stun. The question is, who will be the first to recover and do a follow-up attack? The answer is Blue Noctis. He gets to attack 1 frame sooner because his jab made him +1 when it was blocked. I know this because I looked it up. If both Nocti followed up with the jab here, Blue Noctis would beat out Red Noctis by 1 frame. If a move is 0 on block, they both recover at the same time, hitting each other. If a move is -1 on block, the blocker gets unstuck first by 1 frame and wins the exchange. This is called frame advantage.
Go here. Oh, I continued testing out different ways to show damage. So I didn't like how there's just like a dash here right beside the damage. I thought, why not put it within the circle? So here it's within it, and it looks a little bit better. It looks more eloquent. It looks like I'm using space more efficiently. So I had, so there's 3 levels of hit, and then whichever one is, I guess, highlighted in this case is the one, is a hit level it is. So here in this case is high, hits the head, hits the head, hits the head. So it's all high level hits. And this is just button input, so don't worry about that. I chucked that later on. And then I didn't like the bars. I wanted to be countable. I thought that would be interesting. But I think I wanted to be countable. So I thought, okay, let's do actual boxes within it. So it shows you can count. It just shows you the proof, right? And then I use a diamond here. And so this was more polished version, this one. So essentially range 1, 10 frames on startup before the move will land on the opponent. here we show, this is a 3-hit move, so there's 3 different damage, 1 damage associated with each hit, and then, you know, hit, counter hit, block. I think I was still playing around with the order to put that in, and this just means it enters a specific stance at the end of all that. I eventually had a series of moves like this. I had, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves as a test. I started a tester here, and then you'll also notice I'm using, I believe I was using Roboto. Yeah, I changed it later on to Open Sans because it was the one that closely resembled the font used in the game, and this one doesn't resemble it at all. But I wanted to still resemble the game a little bit, so Open Sans is the best one. Open Sans. And so I used, here I am, I've made various versions. I don't think this is final. Yeah, this is final, because I abandoned this triangle, and now what I've got is, can you see that? Yeah, you see that this one, you know, lower range, right? It's, you have to be at range 1 to hit, range 3 to hit. I added some symbols, so I think this is like at launch. So if you move hits, there will be times when you can't launch them successfully. You can successfully launch them. I think this was knockdown. So knockdown is when you finish a move, they end up on the ground flat. And there's a term for that as well. I think it's called okizeme. So that means there are certain things you can do in that state. And then here I made a legend. Is confusing as heck, because I was thinking I'm going to target beginners. They won't have any understanding of what this means unless I explain everything in detail, right? So here I explain it, right? So, you know, up, forward, I define them, but it's so complicated, right? Explaining effective range is complicated. Explaining, yeah, follow-up frames damage, it's challenging. So I think this was a big mistake, I think, trying to do this. I mean, there might be a better way to do this. Putting it all together was probably not ideal. So anyways, this is version 1. And version 1, I sent it to, so I created a new post on Reddit, and I shared it with the community, and people, you know, were very honest about what they thought. And then the feedback was, for me, it told me that I didn't know what I was trying to achieve or what my goal was, because initially my goal was to create something that would help people build tactics or combos and learn the game better. I thought, oh, this would be exciting. I can show all the different moves for a particular character. You know, it can help people understand why this move will make sense in certain sequences, and I think that'd be cool. And this would be great for beginner, intermediate players. But then I was very naive, right? I made a lot of assumptions, and a lot of feedback I got was, it doesn't sound like you're really clear on what you want to do, or this doesn't seem very helpful. You know, there's something, I pulled this information from a data table, right? Like, there's a lot of people say, I can just reference a table, why would I reference this? Some people thought it was really cool, and they thought it was really helpful. They thought it was really cool that I was trying something out. But I think generally the consensus was, it was a little bit unclear what I was trying to achieve, and even I wasn't able to answer that question. So I thought, okay, I kind of missed the mark here. Well, what can I do? And I was really hard on myself, right? As a creative, I think we tend to filter out a lot of the good things we hear, and we tend to focus on the negative because we want to fix, we want to get better, right? But it's not always healthy. So I took some time to think about it and digest all that information, and went back and looked at it really hard and thought to myself, is this something that I want to continue to pursue, or should I just abandon this project right now? Because I could still give up, and you know, I didn't invest that much time into it, and nobody would get hurt, right? But I was thinking to myself, I knew in my eyes that what I made was version 1 out of 100. A lot of times I make my projects, it's black and white. So this is a black and white version, and if you look, I don't usually incorporate color, and there's a really particular reason I have for that, is because I want to make sure my work can make sense without color. Color, it's a really good way to direct attention, and we had to be very careful on why we direct attention. And in my work, I usually incorporate it last, not all the time, but usually it's the last thing I would incorporate. So I decided to move this project forward and give it another shot. In my eyes, I saw it as a very first step. Everything I make is a very early stage prototype, and I'm always testing things out, testing ideas out. And I decided I just couldn't abandon this project. I just needed to see it through, and that was really important to me. And so I'm pretty much back to square one, going into my notebook, looking for ideas, brainstorming new ways to keep this forward, keep this going. And so the video will be broken into 2 parts. The next part, I'll be talking about how I approached the second version, and there's also a third version as well. And you'll see the final product. So it actually does, I do get it printed, and it looks really, really good. So look forward to that. You'll see all the changes I go through and all the choices I make. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next one.